Hello summoners and welcome back to the Mobalytics patch 8.17 tier list Q&A video. There isn't too much to preface before this video, so let's just get into the questions. Starting off for YouTube, we got two questions, one about Anatolii and one about Talon, both talking about why they're not on the mid lane tier list. As for these champions, they both are on the tier list, except they are on the high elo tier list. At the beginning, I said that in the blog we have our high elo tier list for the full one, and both Anatolii and Talon find themselves on the mid lane tier list. The reason that they don't make it onto the normal one is these champions are pretty hard to win with in lower elos and lower brackets. It seems like a lot of people struggle to understand exactly what it takes to win the game. On Talon, it's because he really does have to roam and impact the map. He has a ton of agency with his E and being able to move around, but that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You kinda need to understand the map. As for Anatolii, she's definitely hard to play mechanically, and she still really hasn't seen much of a win rate improvement over the course of the patches ever since she got released. Both of these champions are great assassins and can snowball and kill people no problem, but remember, again, it's not just about killing people, it's about winning the game and being able to consistently climb. We also had two questions this week, one from Julius Walch and the other from MedToonsi about the tier list itself. I know this sounds critical, but can you name a reason why your tier list is better than others? There are so many tier lists out there that all say different things, and why is this so different from the op.gg tier list? These are both fair questions, and I think it's an interesting topic. The first thing to note is that most stat sites will have automated tier lists based on some kind of algorithm, whether it's win rate, pick rate, what have you. So when it comes to other tier lists, and especially the automated ones, it can be a good starting point, but it might not necessarily be the best thing for climbing. One side note about op.gg as well is that they only take data from Platinum Plus games and only in Korea, whereas we like to consider all ranks and worldwide. We just want to try hard to remove champion power as much as possible and give you realistic goals and expectations when playing the champions and give you the best champions for climbing. You can see this because we don't consider competitive play too much when looking at this, because competitive play is so different than normal elo and even solo queue that it's just hard to compare them. We're trying to give you the best of the best to climb with. As for the second part of your question, what makes us different? I think what makes us different here is we're just trying to give you guys the best community feedback and give you the most personable tier list possible. That's why we do these Q&A questions and Q&A videos. We just want you guys to understand where we're coming from, and that's why we make it personal with things like picks of the week, these videos, always in the comments, reading the comments, stuff like that. And lastly, a couple questions from YouTube, grouping them together about difficulty. Since when is Blitz simple, all of the skill revolves around his hook. I can't see him being put on the same level as Garen, for example, as well as Heimerdinger's learning curve is hard, XD someone's trolling these skill floor lists. The most important thing to understand is, again, this is skill floor, this is not skill ceiling, and this is not overall learning curve, and it's not even mechanical cap or mechanical difficulty. It's just how hard is a champion to play if you are brand new at them. I'm talking brand spanking new. If you have never played a champion, how hard will they be to pick up in your first 10 games? How successful will you be in your first 10 games trying to be and remove as much bias as possible for current champion power? While it's true that certain champions, maybe like Kindred, because they're so strong at the moment, aren't as hard to pick up just because they're good, realistically Kindred is harder to play than she appears just because she's OP. The other thing is that difficulty is a spectrum. Because we have to fill champions into a bucket of 4 different difficulties, this means that it's not always 1-to-1, meaning Garen doesn't necessarily equal Blitzcrank. It's a spectrum of 0 to 25. Imagine the list of 4 was a spectrum of 0 to 100. That means a simple champion, or the easiest, would fit in anywhere of a difficulty rating from 0 to 25, average would be 25 to 50, what have you. I absolutely agree that Blitzcrank would be higher. On a list like this, maybe Garen would be a 0 or a 1. Garen might be the easiest champion in the game, and Blitzcrank might be closer to a 20 or a 25. As far as Heimerdinger, the reason that he has a hard skill floor is because of the amount of decisions you have to make. Typically what makes a champion hard to pick up and learn, even if they don't have a super high mechanical cap, is how many decisions can you make on the champion. With Heimerdinger, every single turret you place in lane, you could be questioning did you do it correctly, and every single time you press your ultimate, you have 3 options to pick from. You have 3 different ultis. Again, while he may not be the highest mechanical cap champion, and you might not always be impressed by Heimerdinger's laning phase and you think that it doesn't really have any counterplay and it's really easy, that's also probably because the person playing against you has already played Heimerdinger for 15 or 20 games. Alright, moving on to questions from Discord. Sheffrin wants to know, why have Alawi and other champions never been meta? Alawi is a tough one, and technically she does have a couple higher elo 1 tricks, one of them being Dirty Mobs, who is one of the best Alawi players in the region. I think that Alawi is maybe a bit underrated from us, and we could consider it. The problem is, not only is there not a lot of data for her, but you just rarely ever see her. Alawi's problems come with agency. All the time, it's hard for her to really do what she needs to do, and it's kind of hard for her to carry or 1v9 a game. Realistically, what you have to do to win on Alawi is you kind of have to just make people come into you and bait them in. And if they don't just try to gank you and get double killed by you over and over again, it can be hard for you to win the game. Due to her lack of hard CC, she just doesn't have the same agency as something like Malphite. You can be 0-10 on Malphite and hit one good ultimate in solo queue and win your team the game. Hyperion wants to know, I just checked the high elo tier list for top lane, and I saw Riven in S tier. I used to be a Riven main, but after season 8 I quit her because of the rune changes that I didn't like for her, and I want to start picking her up again, though I need some help with the runes I should take because I'm a bit confused about that. Also, how did Riven even come to S tier from a bad champion that she was? Okay, I'm a Riven player, so I can answer this question pretty easily for you. As far as the last part of your question, the easiest thing to know is that Riven's buffs she got when it comes to her health regen were really nice. In some of the matchups before that were almost impossible, like let's say Jace or Quinn, you have enough health regen to survive through them, and some matchups that were even before where you would consider, well, should I get Longsword, should I get Doran's Blade, or Doran's Shield? Now you can pretty much go for the more aggressive ones. You don't necessarily have to funnel into Doran's Shield every single game. On top of that, the unsealed spellbook changes were really good for her, and I think the spellbook is the way to go. The rune page should look something like this. The reason this is good for Riven is she is pretty summoner reliant. Riven is probably one of the most important champions to have your summoners up. On top of that, taking Ignite to help yourself snowball is really important. And lastly, moving on to questions from Instagram, BQDP says, I love Kha'Zix, but he's missing. Where is he? Kha'Zix is in an okay spot right now, but he gets better and better the higher elo you go. And this is also because Kha'Zix players typically do like to smurf, and Kha'Zix players are definitely really good in Challenger for snowballing the game. He's kind of hard to make work in lower ranks. The other thing is that the Electrocute nerfs and the Sudden Impact nerfs definitely hit him hard, but you can go Dark Harvest, although again they did recently nerf Duskblade as well. Everything that Kha'Zix wants to do in solo queue he can definitely still do, and he can snowball. It's just that over time the other champions that were more OP than him, like Talon, who got their items nerfed, also really hurt Kha'Zix. And our last question coming from Devin Karan, Jhin and Kai'Sa are S tier and Ahri is not S, Kassadin should take her place. As far as Jhin, the reason Jhin is not S tier is because he is too team reliant. Our tier list is to help you solo carry. If you have a duo queue or you're really comfortable on Jhin, Jhin is really good, and that's exactly what our A tier means. S tier is supposed to be the most optimal under all situations, whether you have a duo queue or playing solo, you can play this champion in climb. Just because Jhin is A tier, we are still saying he's fantastic. It just means that under all circumstances, there's a lot of times where Jhin just can't carry games because it takes too long to scale, and he's too hard to position with, and it's harder to solo carry. The thing about Kai'Sa is she can do this better than Jhin, but the Stormrazor adjustment meant that she doesn't get her double evolve from Q and E as easily. She might still be S tier after these changes, but that's why we placed her down to A. As far as Ahri is definitely still really good and deserves to be S. However, yes, we absolutely agree, Kassadin should be S2. We had him as A tier last time, and even that seemed like a prediction, but not everybody could really see just how much these buffs would matter. Kassadin has skyrocketed his way into permaban status for high elo. He seems very oppressive, and on this patch, he didn't get hotfixed even though it was talked about. Yes, we absolutely agree, you are 100% correct, Kassadin is an S tier champion. Okay, that's gonna wrap it up for the tier list Q&A video for patch 8.17. If you missed the tier list, make sure you check out the comments down below in the description, it'll all be there. And make sure you follow us on all of our socials because that's where we're gonna be answering your questions.